So I am going to be moderating along with my colleague Ashok Das, moderating the first of two sessions. Our session is going to be on globalizing the core, and the second session will come up at 1 o'clock. That will be bringing the world to the classroom. In my session, first of all, what we'd like to ask you to do, we hope this stimulates questions from you. And if you have questions, I think the best way to do it, to handle them, is rather than trying to raise your hand, because in this format we can't see that, put your questions in chat, and my co-host, Ashok Das, will compile them, and during the question and answer at the end, we'll respond to them. So let me quickly introduce the 5 panelists in my session. The first part of this session will be perspectives from PAB. So Ed Getz is a professor of urban and regional planning at the Humphrey School of Public Affairs and the director of the Center for Urban and Regional Affairs at the University of Minnesota. His research and teaching focus on housing and community development, and his most recent book is New Deal Ruins: Race, Economic Justice, and Public Housing Policy. He is in his second term as a member of the PAB. And our second speaker in the first section on perspectives from PAB should be known to, if not all of us, very many of us, Eugenie Birch, who is the Nussdorf Professor of Urban Research and Education at the University of Pennsylvania. She teaches courses in global urbanization in the doctoral seminar and is chair of the graduate group in city and regional planning. She's also the co-director of the Penn Institute for Urban Research and is the co-editor of City in the 21st Century series with University of Pennsylvania Press. She's been a member of the Planning Accreditation Board and was its chair from 2004 and 2006. I'm going to go ahead and introduce the second set of lightning panelists, and then we'll begin our PAB perspective. In part B, we're going to look at perspectives from the schools, and these are going to be, first off will be Deedan Rukmana, who is professor and chair of the Development of Community and Regional Planning at Alabama A&M. His research centers on health disparities and homelessness in the US and spatial planning and development challenges in Indonesia. Ana Paula Pimental is an assistant professor in urban and regional planning at the University of Michigan. She teaches courses in participatory planning and community development, as well as comparative planning law. And her research focuses on amplifying voices of informal dwellers in Brazil and migrants in the United States through community organizing, capacity building, and access to justice. And our last lightning panelist will be Sanjeev Vidyarthi, who is professor in the Department of Urban Planning and Policy at the University of Illinois, Chicago. He's the director of the Master of City Design program, and his research involves exploring spatial plans and city design efforts in a wide variety of settings like planned neighborhoods, new towns, historic cities, and mega regions. And he looks at who should be doing the planning work in these contexts. He's lived and worked in the Middle East, Western Europe, and the US, and he examines the case of city planning as well in contemporary India. The way this is going to work, we're going to have roughly 5 minutes. We might allow people to go as long as 7, but at 7, I'm going to lower the boom and we're going to move on. And at the end, we will have question and answer. So put your questions into chat. Ashok will compile them, and in the Q&A, we'll move forward from there. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Ed Getz to provide his first lightning talk. Ed?
Thank you very much, Petra, and thank you, Leslie, and the others who organized today's panel. This is my second term on the Planning Accreditation Board, and we all know that in the standards, in the planning accreditation standards, global dimensions of planning appears right there in standard 4A 1F as part of the general knowledge of planning that is required. And I think many of you are familiar with the with the matrix in which administrators will fill out what parts of the required core appear in which courses. And I think that that's a general guide for how the PAB looks at things. We attempt to discern and assess where in the core curriculum we see these global dimensions of planning. And it's defined as, currently it's defined as the interactions, flows of people and materials, cultures, and differing approaches to planning across world regions. This is somewhat distinct from the concept that Farnack was describing. And so we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But basically, the PAB at the end of the day tries to assess whether this exists in the curriculum by a review of syllabi. And often we are left with an uncomfortable judgment about whether a critical threshold of global material is covered in a particular curriculum. And so it's an imprecise science, as anyone could tell you who's been either a site visitor or served on PAB. What we're hearing, we're going through a process of reviewing the standards for possible revisions. This is a regular thing that the PAB does every 5 years. And we're inviting input on all of the standards. And what we've heard about the global standards is that the way they currently appear really is sort of isolates the idea of globalism in the profession and in the curriculum. And that we need perhaps a more holistic orientation towards the idea and the concept. And I think the other thing we're hearing is that it's not just a matter of the curriculum, that we need to think about what it means to meaningfully incorporate global dimensions across what we expect of students, how we serve students, how we know that we're serving students well who are following an international path, or how we support faculty and students who are interested in this part of planning and this type of concentration or professional goals that they may have. So we're thinking now about how we deal with the supports that faculty and students can receive in a program, and how that should be incorporated into everything that programs do, from promotion and tenure review to student support to professional development as well. So I think 5 minutes goes by pretty quickly, Petra. I think that what I'll leave you with is simply that we're currently considering a set of ideas to sort of incorporate global dimensions of planning into the standards in a much broader way, and I hope a much more meaningful and holistic way.
Thank you, Ed. That was lovely. Very helpful. For a lightning talk, there's a lot more to say.